Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we look at the bourbons and whiskies to be released in the month of June. You know the drill, run the video. Alright there folks, thank you for joining us for another new and as always exciting episode of the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we are looking at the whiskies and bourbons that are going to be released in the month of June. If you haven't watched May and April's episode, definitely make sure you watch them as well, because as we always say, some of the whiskey can get delayed or come out a little bit early. So some of the videos from months gone by are definitely kind of have relevant information. So definitely go back and watch some of those as well. And if you want to support the channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you would like to go one step further, you can go over to the whiskeycove.square.site where you can order one of these excellent Whiskey Cove branded glasses for rock bottom prices. You'll find just unbranded ones for the same price as what we have over there. We have Rocks Glass, Space Eye Taster, Glencairn and the Kenzie for a phenomenal price. If you want to bundle them all together, there's a big discount on that too. And then also, if you'd like to go one step further than that, we have a Patreon right now. You can go and hit the Patreon link at the bottom after this video. You can start by joining the tier as cheap as $3, where you get access to the content. As soon as I edit it, I post it straight to the Patreon page where you can access that straight away. And you can also go join the Patreon chat where you can speak directly to me for as little as $3. You can post pictures while you're drinking, any questions, any reviews that you'd like to see. Really great way to interact with me. So definitely go and check that out after today's video. But with that being said, let's delve headfirst into the whiskies that are going to be released in the month of June. So we have 6 to talk about. We have no honorable mentions today, just because the 6 that we're going to talk about are as good as it gets. You know, we have some pretty damn good and special bottles being released this month. And the last one that we have, a once in a lifetime bottle. Yes, it's at a pretty penny and it's very allocated, but it is definitely a once in a lifetime bottle. So make sure you stick around to see what that is. First up, we are going to go to Kentucky, and that's because we are going down to Bardstown, because they've just done a recent collaboration with an Indian single malt called Amrut. I think I'm saying that right. A-M-R-U-T. If you know anything about other whiskies apart from bourbon, and just you're looking around the store just generally, you've probably seen this Indian whiskey. You will see it mostly as just the only Indian single malt that's available in the US. I have this awesome sheet. I really like what Bardstown do. They have these kind of sale sheets available, so it makes doing this really easy. So this is going to be a blend of a couple of different whiskies, and then it's going to be finished then in an Amrut cask. So this Bardstown Bourbon Company continues to push boundaries through innovation, exploring new flavor in each collaborative release. This partnership with Amrut Whiskey, trailblazers of authentic Indian malt whiskey, showcases imagination, creativity, and the power of global connection. So this is going to be 43, a blend, like I said, a blend of different whiskies, Kentucky and Indiana. 43% Indiana, 20% Indiana, 17% Kentucky, 15% Kentucky, and then 5% Kentucky. So it's going to be 9 years Indiana, 8 years Indiana, 14 years Kentucky, 10 years Kentucky, and then 11 years Kentucky. And there's all a slew of different mash bills there as well. I'll post the mash bills on the screen so you can see that. This is going to be 55% ABV or 110 proof. Like I said, they're not including any of the distillate from Amrut in there. It is just going to be finished in an Amrut barrel. So Bardstown do quite a lot of these collaborations. They've done it with Prisoner, like High West, the Prisoner Share Red Wine, amongst many other folks. This is going to cost you a pretty penny, and it's going to be $160 at MSRP. Yes, you know, it's a pretty special bottle. It has up to 14-year age statement with as low as 8, sorry. So quite high in age, and just a really unique one. It would be super interesting to see if any of those Indian spice type flavors come over. I've never tried Amrut. I don't quite know what it tastes like, but as an Indian single malt, you'd expect it to have some like cornerstone Indian spices in there. So it would be super interesting to see if you get any of the corianders, the cinnamon, the allspice, the turmeric, those type notes coming through. Not a bottle that I'm going to buy necessarily, but I know some folks at home will definitely be looking for it. Next up, and we are going over to Wild Turkey. That's because they are releasing Russell's Reserve 15-year-old. So this is going to look like this. I'll put the label up on the screen, but I also have a bottle here. So it's going to look almost identical to this bottle here. Apart from having the 13-year age statement on the bottom here, it's going to have 15 years. So this is probably just exactly the same distillate, just aged longer. So the mash bill for this is going to be 75% corn, 13% rye, and then 12% malted barley. Russell's Reserve go on to say that this limited release bourbon is a testament to the art of bourbon maturation, embodying the pinnacle of craftsmanship from the legendary Russell's family. Each bottle is a time capsule capturing the essence of a 15 years age stated bourbon spent in charred American oak barrels. So if you remember, when they first released this bottle about 2 years ago, the 13-year age statement, it was $90. And then recently they bumped it up to like $160. So the new 15-year age statement is actually going to be more than that. It's going to be $250, like kind of like the Camp Nelsons, around that range. For 2 years, for like double the price. That's a pretty hard price tag to justify. Of course, they've had a lot of success with the 13-year age statement. I wonder if we're going to see that anymore. They'll just stick to these the 15 and so on as they move through. But I'm not sure it justifies. I've said that before about the Camp Nelson C. I said the $250 didn't justify it. And then I went ahead and bought a bottle and it was phenomenal. But still, it's a lot of money for bourbon. I don't know if I'm going to buy it necessarily. If I can maybe trade into it with some of the stuff that I have in the Whiskey Cove, then I might do it, but I don't think I'm going to spend $250 on it. We'll just have to wait to see about that. This is going to be 58.5% ABV or 117 proof. Again, kind of like the barrel strength that Russell's kind of sits at. I wonder, is it different to this one? So 58.5 and this is 57.4. So you are getting 1.1% ABV more. Maybe that can justify the price tag for you folks at home, but for me personally, it's not going to. The last few 13 releases, I've had the ability to try two. The first one was lights out, phenomenal whiskey. However, the last two have just been really good single barrels, like really good Russell single barrels that I can remember. So hopefully the 15, you know, this is the first edition of the 15 year, and they generally, when they release Russell's Reserve, generally when they release a new release in a lineup, they have multiple releases. That first one is usually something special. So I'll probably look for it and try to trade into it just because of that. With that being said, let's move on to the next whiskey, and that is because Booker's, it's that time of the year again, they are back with a new release for this year, and this is Booker's Bourbons Batch 2402, the Beam House Batch. So they go on to say that this is an exceptional release from the esteemed Booker Bourbon Collection, a line celebrated for its robust and uncut expressions of bourbon. Carrying the legacy of the Beam's family bourbon making tradition, this batch is a remarkable representation of the brand's commitment to quality and craftsmanship. Aged for 7 years, 2 months and 29 days, the Beam House Batch is bottled at a formidable 63.9% ABV or 127.8 proof, indicative of its cask strength nature. This high proof not only speaks to the bourbon's potent character, but also highlights the intensity and purity of its flavors, which have been carefully developed over years of aging. So the MSRP, this is something to know, hasn't jumped up so far this year. It has been $99 for a little bit of, a little while here. Yes, you'll see a lot of other distilleries to have a tendency of not distilleries, of liquor stores have a tendency of marketing it up because it is kind of like an allocated item. So stores don't get many of them, so they feel that they can charge a higher price, which is, each to their own. I get it. But out of the distillery, this is going to be $99. As I said in the blurb there, it's going to be 63.9%, which is not as high as Booker's gone by. I think this is actually a little bit on the lower end. Age 7 years and 2 months kind of falls in line. I think a lot of Bookers actually are generally around 6 years. So yeah, I have 3 Bookers back there that have been released through the last 6 years or so, and they were all less than 7 years. So this is a higher aged batch for Bookers, but still, $100 for a 7-year cask strength bourbon. You're probably better off looking for a Knob Creek 120 proof 60% ABV pick. That's my personal opinion about Bookers. I was thinking about buying the first one this year, but I'm kind of waiting to see if anybody talks a little bit about how good a certain batch release is, and then if there's one again that's kind of like lights out that really hits a home run, then I'll probably wait to pick that up. That was the Booker's 2402, the Beam House Batch. Moving from Kentucky down to Tennessee, because Tennessee, George Dickel are releasing a brand new bottled in bond. So they've released a few of these over the last few years. They've ranged from 11 years to 13 years. I think they've done 2 releases, unless they've done a couple more, which have been the 11 and 13 that I haven't been able to track. However, this is going to be a 12-year age stated release. Actually, has all the information here. This is going to be the 5th release of the bottled in bond from Tennessee brand George Dickel. A few offerings of bourbon out there, or whiskey, present the age to price equation that George Dickel bottled in bond has. Because for 12 years, the MSRP on this is going to be $49. When it was initially released, that was $36, but it's kind of crept up a little bit. So MSRP on this guy is going to be about $45 to $50. But for a 12-year age stated whiskey, it's not terrible value for money at all, especially in today's market. Yes, again, this is a Tennessee whiskey. It is not a bourbon, so utilize that information how you like. I know that some people are not big fans of George Dickel. I have some of the George Dickel single barrel, the 15-year ones, and it's like the 52% ABV, and that's really tasty. I really like that a lot, and that only cost me around $55. So if we're comparing the two, I would say the single barrels are still the better value for money, because you can get 15-year ones. However, if you're looking for more of a bottled in bond style whiskey, then this 12-year one might be for you. Again, 50% ABV or 100 proof, it has to be, because it's bottled in bond. So hopefully you'd like this one. I'm not sure if I might buy it. I think I might, if I can find it for like $45. Or heck, maybe even one that's priced $40. Just because it's like the same tag that they have on the shelf, then maybe I might get it, because the 13-year age ones were very good. I liked the 15-year one. 11 years weren't so good, but I think, for an outlay of around $40 to $50, you're hardly pulling up trees compared to some of the stuff we'll see today and what we've seen already. So that was the George Dickel bottled in bond 12-year. So taking a trip from Tennessee back to Kentucky, and that is back to the Wild Turkey Distillery, because they have unveiled their latest expression to the Master's Keep series. So the Master's Keep Triumph is what it'll be known as. It's actually a 10-year age-stated rye, making it the oldest age-stated rye that distillery Wild Turkey has ever released, which is pretty crazy if you think about that. Obviously, they've been known for like their core series, which does include Rye and Rye 101. But, as a special release, you might think that they've put out a higher age rye than 10 years, but apparently not. So this one is going to be priced at a very modest $275. That's the same price as it was last year too, which was the Voyage expression. And as usual, it is going to be a limited release, so there's another hard bottle to find. We've tried to balance the list here today, and it's going to be available in select markets across the US. So Triumph is the 10th Master's Keep since the release began in 2015, and it's the second rye. The other Master's Keep rye expression, if you remember, was the Cornerstone, which was released in 2019 and was a 9 and 10-year-old rye blend, not a standalone 10-year-old, like not a 10-year age-stated whiskey. So most Wild Turkey rye is normally around 4 to 6 years. You think of the Wild Turkey 101, which is a popular one and a lot of people like. I haven't tried much of the Wild Turkey 101, and also the Rare Breed rye is probably sitting there as well. So Wild Turkey only actually have 2 mash bills. They have a bourbon mash bill and they have a rye mash bill. The bourbon mash bill is 75 corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. But then the rye mash bill, which what this is going to be 37% corn, and then that 51% rye and 12% malted barley. I think that's the same mash bill they must use for all of their rye products, because they only have 2 unless they're sourcing some other stuff there. So this is the Wild Turkey Rare Breed rye mash bill as well. The ABV on this one is going to be, you know what, I'm going to put that on the screen here because I don't have that in my notes in front of me, but I think it's 52.5% ABV, which is pretty close to the Rare Breed, a couple of proof points less than that. But you're going to get like a 10-year age statement with that for $275. Is it going to be worth that over Rare Breed rye? That's a bit of a tough call, and maybe buying it, tasting it is the only way to find that out. So moving on to the last bottle, and wow, what a special bottle. The likes of us peasants will never be able to set our hands on ever. We might be able to see it, behind protected glass somewhere, but we're never going to be able to get our hands on this bottle. And that is because the Buffalo Trace Distillery are releasing a very special bottle called the Weller Millennium. So I think this is going to be indicative and going into like the lineup with like the Weller very rare lineup, you know, the very rare Eagle Rare bottle has like a very similar case that kind of spreads open. So the Buffalo Trace is going to say that as the third oldest operating distillery in the world, and that includes some Scotch as well, with roots dating back to 1773, Buffalo Trace Distillery has been honing its craft since Kentucky was a wild, untamed frontier and the United States was just an idea. In the centuries that followed, the distillery changed hands numerous times, but one thing remained consistent. It was a home place for the creation of authentic American whiskey. In the turn of the millennium, the distillery was amid a period of transformation and once again looked to its forebearers for inspiration. As a trailblazer in the industry, they go on to say, the distillation team chose to pay homage to William LaRue Weller by setting aside some of the first whiskies distilled in the new millennium for the sole purpose of creating this extraordinary innovation. So they all were already thinking of this whiskey at 24 years ago, which I don't know if that's true. They could have just been keeping barrels, but it's a pretty cool story so far. So this is a blend of vintage straight bourbon and wheat whiskies distilled in 2000, 2003, 2005, and 2006. Weller Millennium highlights the impact of wheat has on whiskey's flavor, the softness that it imparts. So what do we need to know about this phenomenally highly allocated whiskey? This is going to be 49.5% ABV or 99 proof. You know, you get a lot of that age statements. You probably don't want it too high as well. It's already going to have a lot of oaks, a lot of oak tannin. So the more barrel strength you make it, the oak is going to take over a lot. It's aged, as we already know, up to 24 years, and it's going to be costing you $7,500. What are some things that you can buy for $7,500? You could buy you could buy like a Honda Civic, like a 2010 Honda Civic for that price with like 100,000 miles on the clock, which is pretty incredible. You can buy a car for what people are willing to pay for whiskey, and you could put a little bit of a down payment on a mobile home or an RV or something like that. So pretty crazy money is what we're getting that year. So this is going to be Buffalo Trace's undisclosed wheat mash bill, along with some of the other vintage straight bourbon mash bills. So Buffalo Trace like to keep their cards close to their chest when they talk about their mash bills, but the wheated mash bill is best guess around 15% wheat, and then you have mash bill 1, mash bill 2 from Buffalo Trace there. So $7,500. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If anybody ever gets the opportunity to try that, please take a photo, join us on Facebook at Rocky Mountain Whiskey Society and post it there, or better still, join the Patreon for $3 a month and post it there as well, so I could see the bottle, because I would love to see it. I wonder if it's a 700 milliliter bottle. No, that would be taking a mick a little bit there. I'm sure it's a 750 milliliter bottle, but for $7,500 bottle, I just wouldn't be able to do it. Hope you've enjoyed today's video as we drink through the world's whiskeys, $7,500 bottle whiskeys. That would be nice, one glass at a time. Thanks for joining. Goodbye.